So last week I was at Garden of the Gods in Pikes Peak for the first time, even though I live in Colorado. And anyway, I was admiring the rock formations and mountains and just kept thinking to myself, man, creationists are dumb. Of course, it's not even that young Earth creationists are dumb, it's about how entrenched the denial mechanisms are. And as far as geology goes, they've tricked themselves into not understanding simple, basic geologic processes just so they can deny that gradual processes produced what we see. So let's take a dive into some of the depths of science denial.
One thing did jump out at me that Snake said at the end, where he accused Neff and I of not understanding simple geology. So
That's because you don't understand basic geology. I'm not trying to be insulting. That's just the truth.
he knows, yes, there are several different ways that mountains can form. One of them, as you stated, Snake, was many mountains are actually formed a result of Earth's tectonic plates smashing together, right? And as we know, the
Very slowly.
Earth's crust is made up of multiple tectonic plates that still move today. No one's disagreeing with that. And
Yep. And so the fact that you can't understand that these lower areas get pushed up when these two collide proves that you don't understand geology.
And all that's as a result of geologic activity, which is below the surface. So why do you think just stating that
It's happening above the surface too.
fact, I think I went a little more detailed in regards to it, proves your uniformitarian pseudoscientific belief and understanding of the mountain ranges we
You're kind of floundering here because there's actually nothing substantial.
see in everything we see in geology, Snake. Could they have been sufficient to push up the Himalayas?
The pressure.
It is sufficient to move an entire tectonic plate. A mountain is but a fraction of that weight, and we actually observe it happening in real time. We actually observe the movement, the direction of the movement of these tectonic plates, and we observe the direction of growth of the mountain, which is up. This is something we can actually view in real time, and yet you're still in denial because of your fairy tales. That's really sad.
Pressure between them?
Yeah. How can only if it's 4 inches per year, okay, at the current rate of movement, say if we're looking at the force and energy required between the Indian, Australian, and
Realize how heavy.
What do you think is pushing up the mountains, dude?
We know that mountains are growing, and you've already admitted that gradual processes do contribute to the piling up of rocks and formation of mountains. So what don't you get about this?
with that force and energy that they could actually push up the Himalayas. It's like two cars colliding. If they're colliding or traveling at such a low speed, because if we look at the plate movements,
It doesn't really matter how slow it's moving. What matters is that it is moving. Huge bodies moving, even at slow speeds, can move rock, since it is rock and it's already moving. A mountain is but a fraction of the miles and miles of thick, heavy rock and soil, all moving slowly in one direction. See, this car crusher is moving very slowly, and yet its momentum will not be stopped by what's in front of it. If it is moving, it's either moving into nothing, or it is displacing what it's moving toward and colliding with.
But solid rock does not compress. It is not a metal car with a bunch of space in between its parts. It has to go somewhere, so it goes up.
Otherwise, what's there will stop it from moving. That's basic physics. In that same debate, you asked me how fossils can be found in a mountain. As you can clearly see, the warping that happens as the layers are displaced creates an effect where lower layers are stretched above the younger ones, but we can still see which layer it is actually a part of. And in case you still don't get it, take a look at this. Look at the green layer. It's directly exposed to the surface. See, there's actually people who take the time to study this stuff. You guys are just dipping your toes into some creationist websites, and they sure as hell didn't do their homework, and the people who actually did do their homework explicitly reject your obvious fairy tale. So you don't understand displacement of rock and soil. If that plate on the left is moving, that means there's nothing there to stop it. That means there's either nothing here in the middle, or that something is being displaced out of the way. In this case, we see a clear experiment showing that it's displacing the soil, and that results in mountain growth. If you still can't wrap your head around just how this happens, how something can lift up a whole mountain, just try to realize that the whole rest of this thing, the whole rest of this plate is moving, which is more rock than is being displaced by the mountain. It's already moving, and that's way more rock than is already moving due to displacement, which forms the mountain.
With that force and energy that they could actually push up the Himalayas, it's like two cars colliding. If they're colliding or traveling at such a low speed, because if we look at the plate movements, if they're measured, as feet per second, like two cars each traveling at 62 miles per hour, that would be 100 kilometers an hour, the resulting catastrophic collision would have rapidly buckled rock strata.
So at only half the speed you're describing, we would see absolute catastrophic explosive destruction, not buckling and folding of layers. We would see this entire thing just exploding into a mist. And this is metal, and it fastened very well. Not crumbly rock, and yet it's exploding in every direction. You have no idea what you're talking about.
Processes at only 4 inches per year can't push up the Himalayas. It's impossible.
They can and they do, and the equation.
Then how come we see the Himalayas pushing up?
Don't ever play yourself. Don't ever play yourself. Don't ever play yourself. Don't ever play yourself.
Support it, and all the.
Where's your evidence that they do? Where's your evidence?
The fact that we know the speed and direction of the tectonic plates, and the fact that these mountains are growing underneath these collisions of tectonic plates. You admit this, you admit the rate.
Many mountains are actually formed a result of Earth's tectonic plates smashing together, right? And as we know, the Earth's crust is made up of multiple tectonic plates that still move today. No one's disagreeing with that. And
despite your admission that these tectonic plates are moving at 4 inches per year, you still don't understand why displacement occurs in the upward direction. There's rock to the side, there's rock underneath it. So where does it have room to move? Upwards.
Congratulations, you played yourself.
Don't divert. Don't divert. My predictions that I provided. Tell me.
You don't have any.
Yeah, you didn't produce a single prediction. Just making your little fairy tale try to fit with reality is not a prediction.
4 inches per year, that type of force and energy could push up the Himalayas.
What is pushing up the Himalayas then?
Are you just gonna say, well, the geologists can explain it? How is it possible?
They can explain it. You just don't get it because you don't get basic geology. You're perfectly capable of it. You actually do get it. You're just ignoring it in favor of your fairy tale because you can't let reality win when there's cognitive dissonance that bad. Since they're moving at that speed against the speed of another tectonic plate, meaning that they're still moving in that direction despite having resistance.
I've been pressed by Jeremy on this, and your answers weren't.
Yeah, a continent moving at that speed is still a lot of energy.
No. You need 3 meters per second.
It's enough to move. If a continent is moving, that's enough energy to move a continent. Next.
It's a pseudoscientific belief to say that with no actual evidence. When
you just said that they're moving 4 inches per year. You said you don't deny that, and now you say it's pseudoscience as soon as I confront you with the actual implications.
he knows, yes, there are several different ways that, mountains can form. Many mountains are actually formed a result of Earth's tectonic plates smashing together, right? And as we know, the crust is made up of multiple tectonic plates that still move today. No one's disagreeing with that.
And that's why I'm laughing.
And it's come true. So at the end of the day, you can look to that, Snake, but it's not actually, because when we look at the geology of the Earth, present processes, as you're proving here, can't actually explain what we see.
You just said that they do. Why won't you admit this? Oh, because it destroys your entire worldview. Dude, I'm not trying to be insulting. I'm not trying to make fun of you. I'm not trying to denigrate your intelligence. I'm trying to point out to you where your cognitive dissonance lies. Because I don't need to go through this again, do I? Just rewind the video if you don't understand it. Otherwise, I'd be repeating myself. Now we're going to turn our sights to the literal poster boy for the Dunning-Kruger effect. Nephilim free.
Now, Nephi here is so biased and so lazy that when he finds a problem such as this water gap, which he claims cannot happen under the mainstream science, he can't do the 5 seconds of research to understand that a water gap is usually an indication of a river that is older than the current topography. That means the river was there before the mountain. Now, I know Nephi likes his visual aids, so we're going to use a lot of them today.
Now he claims that it's impossible for a river to carve a path through an existing mountain, and that's true, but he's working with that false assumption. He keeps complaining. He thinks he's such a genius because he's figured out that water will run around a mountain rather than carve through it, and yet we do see water gaps of rivers running through mountains. So he uses this as proof that the earth was formed in a catastrophic event such as Noah's flood. One of the most idiotic assumptions I have ever heard in my life. But of course, an idiot could outperform Nephilim on just about anything. This is just a quick demonstration of why Nephilim is so wrong. We're going to raise the ground and see what happens. Since the rates of erosion can easily outstrip the rate of mountain growth, I don't understand what Neph doesn't understand about this. He knows, or he should know, that water can erode rock and dirt. Now, water can erode rock and dirt, even wind can erode rock and dirt, faster than it can grow. Not in all cases, mind you, but it can. So let's see. We'll just raise the level of the earth. Now, during this whole time, the river is also eroding as the ground underneath it is growing. Now, let's just keep making everything grow, even the river. Well, at the same time, the river is always eroding. And yet, the stuff on the side is not eroding, even though the whole time what's in the river is technically growing, but it's growing into a river which erodes. So the rate of erosion here is faster than the rate of growth, or at least equal. Every time a fraction of an inch grows up in the river, that is taken down by erosion. How Nephilim doesn't understand this will always boggle my mind. But then I realize, well, it's just because he's indoctrinated in a cult. All rational thought leaves people who are defending their cult mindset. Just for a closer look, see how it's pushed up, the earth is pushed up, but at the same time, it erodes. Now, that process is not happening on the sides, which is why it builds up on the sides and it stays the same in the middle. You see, every time I go through it and erode, imagine that's actually happening at the same time as when I go through it and make it grow. Who am I kidding? That's way too much for Nephilim to understand. That these two processes happen at the same time. Even if he did understand it, he would never admit that he was wrong on any point, ever. He knows water can erode rock. We all know this, but he ignores the stark implications of this. Even wind can do it.
We all know rivers erode rock and soil. This is just a fact. I don't think even Nephilim Free can deny this one. But he's incapable of connecting two thoughts at once, so I'm going to try and impose them as closely as possible. Imagine this effect of water pushing dirt and sand and apply it to this experiment here, where the dirt and sand is being pushed towards each other, and it forms a mountain. This rushing water will not stop flowing just because of a tiny increase, which is only a tiny increase happens at a time. Now, as long as this erosion process is faster than the upgrowth of the mountain, it will create a water gap. Like Standing for Truth, Nephilim Free does not understand how these rock layers form or why they form the folds and shapes that they do. You see, rocks, they're crumbly, they're particulate. So the sand simulations of mountain growth actually do accurately represent the composition of the ground at a large scale. Do you see how crumbly it is? It's not just a single solid slab, like a marble slab on your countertop. As stress is put on the rock, it does crumble, yes. It's not the individual rocks, the individual sand particles that are bending. It's the whole layer that is made up of particles. And those folding patterns are exactly what we find in mountains. But just to chap Neffy's thighs, since he's always on about rock does not bend. Well, here's a video I took of me bending a rock. How do you like that? Very nice. I guess I'll see you next time with more creationist insanity.
See, when you do clownery, the clown comes back to bite.